The following program is a production of The Bob and John Show. Any similarity between person and places is strictly a coincidence. The producers of this program are solely responsible for its content.
It's now time for the Sudsy Wudsy Show, brought to you by Sudsy Wudsy. Sudsy Wudsy. It's an all-purpose cleaner. It's a car wash. It's a bubble bath. Yes, it's Sudsy Wudsy. Sudsy Wudsy now proudly presents The Adventures of Jimmy Ballpoint, Private Investigator, Ear, Eyes, and Nose, the complete package, Jimmy Ballpoint.
This is where I work, the city. It used to be a nice place with nice people. But like everything else, they left. And now the city is a dark and gritty city, with dark and gritty sidewalks, with dark and gritty taxis. Downright depressing if it wasn't for the gum stuck under the tables at the automat. I'm Jimmy Ballpoint, private investigator, ear, eye, and nose, the complete package. My office is up 3 flights of stairs, straight up, right above a flop house. A little office with a desk, chair, sink, and a couch. Like I said, a dark and gritty place. But it's just right for a guy like me. The case that I'm working on now is the case of the Canary. I was walking up 3 flights of stairs to my office when I stopped and saw the door to Vernon's office open. His office was in somewhat of a mess. I asked Vernon if he was redecorating the joint. He told me that he was meeting with a client. Then her husband came in and he and the mug got into a round of musical chairs. The music stopped and, well, Vernon ran out of chairs. Not good. I noticed an armrest and a seat cushion sticking out of his shirt, and I suggested to Vernon that perhaps he should try another line of work. Musical chairs is not his thing. Vernon is a private investigator, just like me. He deals in divorces in process. Kind of a tough racket. Besides, it's hard on the furniture. I made my way to the top landing. There was an envelope stuck in the door jamb. I made my way in, tossing my hat and sport coat on the coat rack. I missed, of course. I spun my swivel chair around and made myself comfortable. I opened the envelope and out fell a bill with Ulysses S. Grant on it. Well, what do you know? My favorite top guy. I think I even voted for the mug. A note inside the envelope said to call Mr. Pierogi. Must be something that the old man wants to take care of on the hush-hush. I reached for my phone and tapped the cradle for the town's switchboard. A voice came over the phone with, "Yes, operator." It was Kelly. She had that voice that I could listen to all day. Fact was, Kelly and I were a number once, but that's another story. I asked Kelly to connect me to Old Man Pierogi's place. Kelly made some small talk while I placed the phone on my desk and folded the $50 in my wallet. I finished just in time to hear Kelly, "Take it easy, tough guy." Yeah, sure, beautiful." Old Man Pierogi's phone rang a few times and his butler answered. That unmistakable deep voice, like out of a spooky movie or something. I mentioned the envelope and the bill with Ulysses on it. The butler told me that Mr. Pierogi has this pet, a pet that he's had for years. Raised it himself. Really partial to it. Somehow the pet is gone. Nowhere in sight. Mr. Pierogi would consider it to be very, very special gesture if Jimmy Ballpoint would find his pet. Okay. And what exactly is this pet that Mr. Pierogi can't find? The butler paused for a moment and then said, "It's a canary." Okay. And what does Mr. Pierogi call this canary? There was another pause. Then the butler returned and said, "Larry." What? The butler told me that the bird was last seen heading out the back door and towards town. I was going to make some remark with a little humor in it when I decided against it. Trying humor on Old Man Pierogi's butler is like telling the world's funniest joke to a cinder block. Okay. I'll get right on it. I hung up the receiver on the phone's cradle, leaned back in my chair, and tried to think. Just how am I gonna find a tiny little yellow bird? How? Hey, wait a minute. It's Friday, and most of the mugs down at this end of the city are at Angel's Bar with their paychecks. Then a few head over to Cass Street. I closed up shop, headed downstairs towards the street. Outside of Vernon's office is a pile of furniture, like a going out of business sale. I noticed Vernon has another client, a good looker at that. Just before I hit the swinging doors at the end of the staircase, one of the doors gets pushed open and hard. This tough-looking hammer makes his way upstairs, and not too happy. I was just thinking that Vernon better have a longer record, at least more chairs. I made my way into Angel's Bar, and the usual crowd was there. I covered a bar stool and asked Angel if he had seen a yellow bird that answers to the name of Canary. Angel said I must be looking for that stool pigeon, Miggins. He busted out of the joint last month. Snitch poked his head out of the phone booth at the end of the bar and asked if I was looking for Miggins, the stoolie that turned Leonard over to the cops for a plea deal. Blinks came up to me from behind and told me that he heard that Miggins was out on the lam. Too many mugs were on the lookout for Miggins. I was getting nowhere at Angel's Bar, so I started walking the streets. As I walked, I tried to clear my head. thinking, where would I go if I was a canary? Where would I go? I guess I'd go to a place with a lot of trees. Yeah, that's it, trees. Birds like trees. I flagged down a taxi, and to my surprise, a taxi pulled right up. I opened the back door and went to get in when I froze. There behind the wheel was Flippo the clown. Yeah, that's right. I'm looking for a bird. A yellow bird at that. Flippo said birds like trees. I might want to try to park. You know, for a clown, Flippo comes up with a good idea now and then. Flippo drove to the park just outside town. We parked next to the lake and the trees around the lake. Yeah, I see it. Good man, Flippo. With a stroke of luck, there, no more than 5 trees ahead, about 20 feet up, was of all things, and singing his little head off, was a canary. A picture-perfect postcard if I ever saw one. The little mug was on a branch, sticking out over the lake, blue sky behind him and not a cloud in sight. Flippo turned off the car. I slowly and silently made my way out the back door and slowly around the trees next to the bird so he wouldn't see me. I got to the backside of the tree the bird was on. I looked up and thought to myself, this is a big tree. You sure you want to do this, Ballpoint? Old Ulysses S. Grant in my wallet had a way of telling me to get going. I climbed up the trunk and made it to the branch that the bird was on. It then dawned on me that I didn't have much to catch the bird with. Somehow, I convinced myself that I could grab the little guy. I made my way on to the branch, using the leaves to cover me. I caught the bird's attention with the look of, you gotta be kidding. I looked down and there was the lake below. Flippo in the taxi just stared out his windshield and shook his head back and forth. As I made it closer and closer to the little mug, I heard the sound of, oh, this is just peachy. I got a clown in a taxi looking out his windshield. I'm up on a branch 20 feet above a lake, reaching out to grab a yellow bird. And if anything goes wrong, only one of us can fly. How did I not see this coming? Oh man. I made my way to the water's edge, crawled up on the grass and caught my breath. As I sat up, I saw the bird fly off towards this large space of grass. I got up and followed the bird and saw him land on this wide open stretch of grass. The bird seems a bit out of breath from flying. Great. I crept up on the little guy only to hear my shoes soaked with pond water. Then, off in the distance, some young mug yells at me.
4,
I turns my head to focus on the mug when I look up, and a tiny white ball comes right for my forehead. Oh. I open my eyes to see Blue Sky, the police commissioner, the local bishop, and two rabbis looking down on me. One in the group seemed to be upset because I got in the way of something. The commissioner recognized me and settled the situation down. I left and headed back to the park in Flippo's taxi. Yeah, I know. Head back to my office. I made it back to the office building and gave Flippo a couple of sawbucks. I made it halfway up the stairs and stopped at the entrance to Vernon's office. His door was wide open, and his desk was the only stick of furniture in the joint. Vernon was sitting on the corner of his desk, adjusting some bandages on his head. He raised one of the bandages from his left eye, saw me soaking wet, and remarked that he didn't know it was raining outside. I told Vernon that it is what it is, Vernon. I made it back into my office, made it to the couch and stretched out. It had been a long day. I rolled off the couch. Hello. Jimmy Ballpoint is not... Oh, it's you. Old Man Pierogi's butler was on the other end and told me that the bird had returned. The bird must have wanted a bird bath. The bird was a little wet, so it must have found one. Everything is fine now. Mr. Pierogi was told that you were at Angel's Bar asking questions to start looking. Mr. Pierogi is very grateful for your efforts. He told me that I would be receiving a thank you in the mail shortly. The butler asked if Mr. Pierogi's request was any trouble. I told him, no, not at all. Glad to do it. I hung up the receiver on its cradle and reached in my bottom left drawer and pulled out my bottle of amber glow. I retired to the couch, popped the cork, and took a swig. Did Mr. Pierogi put me to any trouble? Nah, not at all. I held the bottle up to the light behind me while I reclined back. Ah, amber glow. You understand me, don't you?
Well, folks, that concludes another episode of Jimmy Ballpoint, Private Investigator, brought to you by Sudsy Wudsy, that all-purpose cleaner. Keep your radio dial on this station for next week's Jimmy Ballpoint, Private Investigator. Ear, eye, nose, the complete package.